Guest in this segment is the president of the Berkeley County Commission, Eddie Gochenour. Eddie, good morning. Thank you for coming in.
Good morning, Rob.
You got a busy day ahead of you too, don't you?
We do, yeah.
Yeah. What are you guys doing after the show today?
Well, at 9 o'clock we'll be laying the levy.
And that means what?
Well, it sets the tax rate, for the next year, which will remain the same at $13.39. That's where it's been for the last couple of years. So, just trying to be, responsible with tax dollars and keep everything in line.
The legislature did not pass any relief for the homestead tax exemption, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So it remains at whatever the level it was before.
Yeah, I think it's $25,000.
I think, yeah.
And that's very unfair, especially to our seniors and those who are disabled. It's very unfair because the values here so much higher than the rest of the state.
Indeed.
What was who promoted that bill, that particular bill? Was that local legislators, or do you know?
Well, we had actually talked about it, multiple times. I don't remember exactly who was the lead sponsor on it, but it's been part of our conversations for a number of years.
And I wonder why it did not get a lot of leverage.
Who knows? I'm really frustrated with this legislature. So,
you took a couple of hits this time.
We sure did. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about this microgrid bill, Eddie. I know you are not a fan of what has ultimately passed. What did ultimately pass in terms of a percentage and a formula?
Well, it passed out of the at both houses at 30% goes to the county that has the data center, and 10% to every other county that does not have the data center.
Combined, all the other counties combined.
That's correct. Yeah. Yes, and I'm assuming that the governor will sign it. It's not what he wanted, but I'm assuming that he'll sign that bill.
He wanted 100%.
He absolutely wanted it all. Yes, sir.
And you folks went down, argued your case, and wound up with 30%?
We have. I've been having discussions with the governor since last Saturday, and he's a very tough negotiator, I'll tell you that. He doesn't want to budge on anything. And, everything that they got accomplished on that particular bill, quite honestly, was on the backs of the counties of the state.
Explain why, and let's talk about a potential revenue from this, because you do have an actual physical example that's going in a data center in Berkeley County.
We do. Just as an example, that the taxpayers can, understand, this is a $4 billion investment, and that's $4 billion with a capital B.
In Berkeley County?
In Berkeley County. Okay. We'll have two centers, two buildings going up that are currently going through our planning commission process, and they've already been through sketch plans. So now they are in the preliminary plan stage, going through like every other project would, and those dollars are huge. I mean, you're looking at a $17 million tax revenue off of those two buildings alone.
If you got 100% of the revenue.
Well, and by law, we're entitled to 99% of it. That's the Constitution of the state of West Virginia.
1% goes to the state, 99 to the county.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, yes, we're going to fight for that, because those are Berkeley County tax dollars that are being sent all across the state of West Virginia, and the governor wants a lot of things, and the personal income tax, he wants to eliminate that. Well, I think that's a wonderful thing. I do, and I would appreciate that myself, but not on the backs of the county governments. That's not how this was supposed to be. The state had already set up different plans to be able to accomplish that as these different, what they would call triggers, come around. So. But he's going to kind of jump the gun on this and take the tax dollars out of counties.
So this is when these two buildings are up and running, you would normally generate $17 million annually in property taxes, of which you would keep 99%. With this new law, if the governor signs it, you'll get roughly 30% of that $17 million, or $5.1 million. The other $12 million is going to the state and to be distributed to the state and then not other counties.
Yes, sir. But this is also, it's more than about the money. I mean, the money is really, really important, especially with our growth. Trying to get the things accomplished that we're trying to get accomplished. It takes money, and but it's also about land use. We hold every developer and and every commercial project that comes in here to a standard that's been adopted and approved by the county commission on the on our subdivision regulations, and this negates all of that.
How so?
Well, they don't have to go through the permit process. They don't have inspection process. They don't have a fee process. It is absolutely the most overreaching piece of legislation that I have ever encountered in my 5 years in this county commission seat. And that's why we're fighting. If the governor, who was our previous attorney general, was very aggressive in going to the federal government and saying, "Hey, whoa, you're not. It's overreach." And daggone, within 90 days, he's done the exact same thing, if not harder, to us. So, we have to push back. We have to push back.
Will you push back to the courts?
Well, it's. I think we have to have that conversation. I honestly do, and obviously that will be up to the entire commission to make that decision. But we'll need to get legal advice, from our lawyer, and see what the best route for us to go.
Bill?
You mentioned bypassing some of the city or the county ordinances. Does that include stormwater management?
I'm not sure about that. I'm really not. I can't tell you.
Yeah, you mentioned the governor 2 or 3 times. It's my impression that the governor has had kind of a rocky 2 or 3 months beginning. He got crosswise with the legislators. He was able to amend some of that differences toward the end of the session, but still there's a bad taste in a lot of the legislators' mouth the way the governor came in and tried to steamroll over them and doing the lobbying when he really should not have been lobbying, i.e. in the committee rooms, and also the county commissions. I agree with you. I think this is an overreach. I'd be curious to see what the lawyers feel. Having frustration and having enough legal grounds to stand upon are 2 different things. I would be curious to see what the lawyers say.
Yeah, well, we'll see. And I know that they're already doing their research. And
but one of the problems is not all counties are in step with you. Some counties feel this is a real boom, and they're very happy to get anything they can get. It's counties like Berkeley County that are in a position to have gained substantially more and going to have to settle for a lot less that are unhappy.
Well, to start with, this particular bill, it's really got 2 major pieces to it: the microgrid bill and the data center bill. It's all in one. And quite honestly, I think that they're 2 separate issues. In Berkeley County, our center will not be coming off of a microgrid. It's coming off the pole. So it's coming off the system that's currently there. Whereas our data center is a 110 megawatt center. The data center that they want to put in Mason County is a 3,000 gigawatt. So it's huge. So they'll need that generation of power there to be able to power that facility. But that's a huge facility that could, it's just a tremendous amount of dollars involved there. Originally the big concern with data centers was the amount of water that they use. So early in, I serve on the Development Authority. That was one of the very first things we checked, because some of them use like 1 million gallons a day for cooling. And but the one that we are getting, it's a closed system. It's a glycol system, so it uses a minimal amount of water for cooling of the towers. So we're coming off the grid, so we didn't have a generator out there running, making a big noise in the communities. But so it was almost like the perfect opportunity to bring that revenue source here. And obviously this company, they didn't complain. They're in the process right now. But this bill that the governor presents, takes all responsibility away from the counties as far as any inspections, any permit fees, no fire fees, no ambulance fees, stuff that our everyday people have to pay every year.
Who recruited this data center to come to Berkeley County, Eddie?
They actually came through the state, and then they were handed off to our local development authority. And also, I mentioned the development authority. They sent a letter in opposing this bill, as well as the Chamber of Commerce. They all realized that it's really and truly, it was not a good bill. You know, the
state Chamber of Commerce, or the county?
The county Chamber of Commerce sent a letter opposing this bill. And, you know, the job of the development authority is to create jobs and expand the tax base. Well, these places don't have very many jobs, but they have a huge tax base, and that's been taken away.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned one building. Also, there's a possibility of two buildings. Is that
Yes,
correct?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Now, the one building, there's sufficient electricity or energy within the existing net. They can take it from the pole. Is there enough electricity in our net for two buildings?
Yes, sir.
We can satisfy both of them.
Yes, sir. That was one of the very first things that they do, is do their load study from the Potomac Edison.
Is there any noises coming from the building? Because what I'm thinking of is that the location will be right beside hospice.
Yes.
Is there going to be any noise pollution from the building?
There may be some, but I truly believe that it will be at a minimum because of not having the generator. You know, if they had a large microgrid generator there, then you're talking excessive noise.
Yeah.
But this is coming off the pole, so that will be quiet. Yes, there'll be fans and those type of things, but I do not anticipate it being offensive.
Where's the second building, Eddie?
Actually, they're on the same parcel of property.
Same campus.
Yes, and then that property actually splits Berkeley and Jefferson. And it's my understanding they have a larger plan for over in Jefferson. Yeah. So there'll be additional buildings over in Jefferson.
That's also kind of wrapping around hospice. One's to the north, the other one's to the east. Yeah. But it's there's no plans right now for developing the Jefferson County property that you know of.
That's correct.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Jefferson County Commission President Pasha Majdi will be joining us after the 8:30 break here. Right now we're talking to the Berkeley County Commission President, Eddie Gochenour. Eddie, in regards to this property going in, what are the rights of the surrounding property owners, if any?
I don't think there's any, according to the way the law is going to be. I mean, they're exempt from any regulations, any fees, any inspections. It's you know, I've heard it said, you know, earlier it's just like eminent domain. They're going to come in and do what they want.
So you can collect 30% of the property tax, but you are not allowed to assess fire fees or anything of that nature?
That's my understanding, yes.
Are you expected to provide service if the building has a fire emergency?
Absolutely.
Is there any reimbursement that comes secondary through the state in that situation?
I'm not sure about that.
Very good. So if the state identifies another parcel of land in Berkeley County, this bill gives them the ability to eminent domain claim that land?
Yes.
Does it have to be vacant land, or could it be land that buildings are currently on that you're collecting tax revenue from?
No, I tell you quite honestly, these companies have so much money. They can come into a community and buy that entire community and move everybody out of those houses, destroy the houses, and build what they want. I mean, this is huge money. You know, they could essentially come into the city of Martinsburg, buy 2 city blocks, and put a data center there. I mean, this gives them the authority to do those things. So,
did you track with the last voters voting how our legislators voted?
Well, quite honestly, I think that they all supported it. Now, having said that, I witnessed and appreciated the chair of finance, who is Jason Barrett. Jason worked very, very hard with Senator Jeffries and Senator Morris with the Economic Development Committee to try and get as much as they could, you know, for the counties. And I witnessed their frustration of being able to try and do this, but I also appreciate their efforts. You know, I asked several members, you know, locally of our house to say, you know, they said, well, I really didn't read the bill. I'm like, well, I don't particularly believe that. You know, you don't. When the governor sends a bill over from the executive branch, you go try to tell me you didn't read it. I don't believe that. You know, a couple different times this past week I heard where, well, you know, we're trying to get the governor a win. Well, you know what? not on the backs of the counties. Yeah.
Yeah, the governor needed a win because he lost his 2 signature bills up front, the CON, Certificate of Need, and the vaccination. He had another 9 or 10 that were, I'm going to say, softer bills that he did get across. But this was the economic development. He needed the win there.
Well, I don't feel sorry for him. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
If you want to win, then bring good legislation to the table, and you'll win.
Yeah.
I am sick and tired of the state of West Virginia being at the bottom of every chart, everything that's always bad. The counties already struggle with some of this. We all had an opportunity to win, and that's what I was trying to get the governor to agree upon. Even at the least, let's be a partner. I mentioned that several times to him during our conversation. Let's be a partner, and let's be an equal partner. And he said, well, I don't know if the Constitution allows me to split with you like that. I said, well, Governor, quite honestly, I'm not sure you have the constitutional authority to do what you're doing, but obviously you're going to try to do it. But in this bill, we're fighting down there and fighting very hard. We tried to get this center exempt of this bill because it's already in its process. We tried to get the repeal of the rollback in this law. Which they took out.
And the rollback means what, Eddie?
Well, the rollback, when you grow, as we've grown over the years, our values continue to increase, but we cannot increase more than 103%. So if we go to 110% of the values higher than last year, then we have to push it back down to the 103. So, the state says, oh, we need our state to grow, but yet they penalize you at the same time. And I was just concerned that with the data center coming on, those values would skyrocket our values countywide. And so it was important to us that we got the repeal of the rollback. So, it's very frustrating, to say the least. It's very frustrating.
As this bill was originally crafted, the state was going to take 100% of the revenues and the counties would get nothing, not even a distribution amongst the 55 counties?
No, sir. It was 100%.
And with the 100%, were you at least permitted to assess fire fees and permitting fees and such?
No, sir. No, there was nothing. There's no revenues that would be generated that goes to the counties.
So this would have been an unfunded mandate to provide emergency services to a building you cannot collect taxes on. Are there any other situations like that exist in the county right now?
No, sir. Not that I'm aware of.
That's a fascinating mandate, isn't it? Yeah. Here's a building. It's in your turf. You provide all the services and we give you no money for it?
But it's something that Eddie mentioned earlier that I find to be intriguing. The reduction, elimination of a personal income tax. That was, as Eric Household and others put together, it was set on triggers.
Yes.
What this bill was going to do was basically circumvent those triggers. It was going to dump a lot of money early into elimination of personal property taxes. That appeals to the politician and appeals to folks, as you said, everybody wants to pay less taxes, but there's a limit on what we should do. And I think having the counties pick up the financial burden is beyond the pale, beyond the limit.
The people I've spoken with, Eddie, who are in favor of this bill say that in some of the smaller counties where these data centers will go, they don't need that much revenue. There's no reason for them to collect that much revenue because they have nothing to spend it on. This is what I'm hearing, right? Clearly that doesn't apply in growth counties. Was there an approach to try to get this relationship divided between growth counties with a different arrangement than non-growth counties?
No, sir. I can tell you, I didn't have a conversation because I'm not going to do something to hurt a smaller county. They're entitled to those tax dollars according to our Constitution. So I'm not going to sit there and try to take those dollars from them. I don't think a lot of people realize that some of these smaller counties, quite honestly, they may be seeing data centers. And the reason is, obviously Loudoun County has, several hundred of these buildings. They want to get that technology out of the blast zone. They want them out of the metropolitan, the Northern Virginia blast zone. And they also want these centers closer to the grid. So the closer to the power plants that they can get them, the more secure their power is. So, there's stand by. Some of these smaller counties, stand by, because you're going to be getting data centers based on those two things right there.
If you're bringing coal out of the ground, you've got a data center next door.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And also some of this area that had been subject to mountaintop removal has a lot of toxics associated with it. This is an ideal place for some of these data centers because you have electricity or natural gas and coal very close to it. You need to renovate or reuse the land, so perfect places. But one size doesn't fit all.
Well, people have been asking to bring data centers into the Eastern Panhandle for a while, and I guess it's going to happen. Are there other locations around the county you're aware of, Eddie, where there are plans for the future?
There was talk of one off of Route 51 East outside of Inwood, but I've not heard anything about that for a while. So that one may have passed. I'm not sure. Or maybe they were waiting on this very unfair legislation to be approved. I don't know.
What's the footprint of this one that's going in Berkeley County compared to, say, the Procter & Gamble facility?
Well, the two buildings that we're getting adds up to like 1.2 million square feet. So, about 600,000 square feet. Very similar to the buildings that you see there in Pikeside, there at Tabor Station, maybe around that size.
Eddie, any final thoughts?
No, we have to continue to fight, for what's right for Berkeley County, and we will continue to do that. And thanks for the opportunity today.
Yeah, I have a thought. I think Eddie is a perfect example of a county commission that has the eloquence and the passion to speak for us. We're well represented with Eddie Gochenour.
Appreciate that, Bill. Appreciate you, Eddie. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.